I did have one other topic that I wanted to discuss before we go into our viewer questions.
By the way, for the viewer questions, we'll do a bunch to make up for the fact we couldn't do any last episode. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, we got time. So I want to talk about Dash. Because basically we can now reflect after Dash, after Dash now has not been there for some time, which is that.
Wait, but I'll just say something. One thing I noticed. I'll give you credit, Monte. You know how important credit is to me. It's more to other people. They're not that big a deal. They fucking slept on your joke on Power Spike or whatever it was. I saw that little clip that like the producer put onto like Instagram. So Monte made a whole thing about Dash and about how obviously no one watched him when he was streaming. And there was two straight fire jokes that they're just sleeping on. One was Monte made a whole thing about how obviously he's part of the Riot Content Creator Collective. That's straight fire. He was referencing the Danny thing, obviously, but how that got like fuck all extra views. But that's what they did with Dash when he left being the host. And then the other thing, and this is the saddest of all, is cause like Dagon or something was like, yeah, and he won the host of the year. Then Monte goes, yeah, well, he's going to win the Ghost of the Year this year. And they didn't even react. Like, that's actually a banger.
I was sad about that.
That was a fucking banger. Fair play. You deserve your props on that one. That was good. We'll run it back. There you go. No problem.
Esports host to Esports Ghost of the Year. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it's depressing. But I just want to go back and talk about this because I think it's important to show how Riot treats their talent and all of the lies that they told about Dash this year. Okay. Because after this last LCS finals, he kind of gave that send off that basically implied that he wasn't going to be working with Riot anymore, or at least in extremely limited capacity. He made a tweet that made it seem like he's not coming back. And we just have to think about how this even unfolded, which is really like rather crazy. And I want to give Dash a lot of credit to his professionalism because I would have lost my shit publicly if this happened to me. Because remember,
he still hasn't even leaked anything that went on. I think he's sort of kept it stum, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think like look at what happened to him. He was told like late last year that he wasn't going to be coming back for this year, and he still held it together, did the rest of the season. He was told months in advance.
Right.
And he continued to just power through the rest of the season. He powered through the World Championship, didn't say a damn thing, and then kind of made an announcement after he was done at Worlds, I believe. I believe that was the timeline,
Right.
when everything was done, that he wasn't going to be returning to LCS next year. And obviously this caused a huge like fan backlash because he's extremely good at his job. He had just won, the Esports Host of the Year, had been recognized by the industry. And they said, oh, yeah, well, we're gonna move to a system on LCS where we don't really need a host, right? We don't really need
that's
a
right.
host.
Yeah.
Except now we can take a look back at the product that the LCS created, and we can say definitively that, no, they just replaced Dash with like Jat or another person who is on the desk who is leading the conversation. So the question becomes, was this better without Dash? The answer was no. Dash would have done a better job within that system that you wanted. And as I pointed out previously, how ridiculous this premise was, he is a professionally trained actor. If you are going to be moving towards more skits and memes, when he was in skits previously, he was the best person in those skits. If you want somebody to do that kind of content, you literally want Dash to do that. He is the one who is trained professionally to do that. He was the best at it by a pretty large margin. You didn't have a reason to remove him from the desk because ultimately you didn't change the desk that much. You put them on couches instead of behind a desk. That's what you did. And then you just had somebody else lead the conversation. Now, of course, they promised, oh yeah, well, Dash is going to be back. And they did that horrible cringe thing where they did that. Remember, guys, they did that video where it was like Dash is back and there's all the welcome back Dash fireworks and they spent a bunch of money and they used him for like a day or two, and then he's gone again. And remember, they also promised, speaking of that skydiving movie or the skydiving feature that we talked about earlier, they said, well, we're going to hire Dash and, he's going to do this content on the side and he's going to do this high production stuff and get to know the players better. They did one episode and that was it. And it never happened again. So all of the things they said about Dash were just lies. Riot just lied. They didn't do any of the things that they said they were going to do. They completely fucked him. He dedicated years and years of his life to this, and they got rid of him. He didn't have any kind of protections because he was a freelancer with the company, and he didn't have any leverage to go anywhere else because apparently nobody else wants to hire him in any of the other regions either, right? So this is how Riot treats people. And like, I don't know what to tell the other casters in this scene, but if you can't see that the writing is on the wall, if they're willing to fuck Dash up like this, lie to him about his future employment prospects, tell the fans, tell everybody publicly that he is going to be doing these things, and then do none of those things that he was probably relying on for income. He's basically just been trapped this entire year in a cycle of, will Riot continue to hire me or not? Which also, by the way, prevents him from getting potentially other jobs because he wants to be available when they are telling him they are going to make this content with him that they just don't make.
Even though I will say I don't claim within Valorant to have any like secret sources for this particular topic. I'm just as an outsider speculating and someone who knows the industry. Another thing I also found very sus, by the way, Monty, is people might not know this, but last year Dash was also doing a bunch of the Valorant stuff as well for Riot as LCS. And at the beginning of the year, he also started doing that. He did the lock-in tournament, he did the Americas thing. He isn't on the rest of the Valorant circuit either. So the other thing that's really weird here, Monty, is it's almost like they explicitly don't want him. Because to me, the obvious, I thought even a cynical answer would be like, Valorant's the new hot game, so we're moving him over to that, and, we're going to do something different with LCS. They didn't even do that. They actually, just as usual, have cut off their nose to spite their face. Like, I don't get it, because to me, he is like a multi-game talent who can clearly be good in any game, can't he? Like, it's not like he's there for special knowledge of League. Like, he's actually one of those guys where what's good is you never notice that they're not an expert. They just stay within their lane, do their shit, set the other guy up, and then he's just a fucking professional, and he's just a very polished professional. Because I think he's good as well. Always enjoyed watching him.
He's very good. And it just makes me super depressed because, again, there's no closing of ranks from the LCS casters who could have gotten together and said, no.
You're feeling uncomfortable about the theoretical reality of casting a game with scabs, but you won't even like band together to help your own colleagues get fucked. Come on. And also, if you Riot, you just didn't understand priorities. If there's any talent on your broadcast that people so wanted to see jump out of a plane, it was Gabby Durden, not Dash. Whatever.
Jesus.
You'll get the parachutes. You'll get the joke. Sorry, they survive in this one. It's a good joke. It's a good setup. It's all good.
No, I think that this was clearly just a cost saving measure. I think he was the most expensive member.
Will have been, I'm sure. Yeah.
Of the LCS broadcast, and he was there every single day. And as I've said, like, this has to be a precursor for things in the future, guys. LCS viewership dropped when Dash was not on the broadcast, but they're going to say, oh no, it was because of the time change or the date change or declining viewership in NA, which is probably the truth. I don't think people stopped watching because Dash wasn't on the broadcast.
No,
because,
of course not.
That's just the reality. And as we have more and more co-streamers, it matters less and less who the talent is on the broadcast because they can just let the co-streamers carry the heavy load and the casters are just kind of the soft voices in the background. And people who are hardcore fans who maybe don't like the main broadcast because they don't have the best professionals on there anymore are just going to go watch the co-streamers instead, right? And especially if they give Kadril, LCS co-streaming, which they still haven't yet. Kind of mysterious. I was going to slide this one out there. Really weird how LCS hasn't offered any of the current casters for Riot co-streaming. It's almost like they're intentionally barring them from doing that for a particular reason. Maybe it's because they don't want those casters, when they're not casting LCS, to get a bigger following and make more money than they could from Riot. Because I bet you if Captain Flowers was doing days of LCS that he wasn't on, he would probably make more money than he would from Riot. He'd probably make more money. So it's been really cynical the way that Riot has dealt with co-streaming. Like, they gave Dash co-streaming because they didn't have him on the broadcast anymore, but they still haven't given it to Kadril, which is just like really weird. You would think you would want his potential viewership when he does so much for LCK and LPL, and they haven't given any other active casters those roles either. But we're coming to a very cynical point where, it wouldn't surprise me to see a big mix-up, as I've said many times, with the LCS casting crew just for cost reasons this next year. I'm pretty sure that's what happened with Dash.
At the time of the last episode, they probably bring in randoms or people from like Brazil and Latin America and smaller places, right?
Well, why wouldn't they? They already gave all of the Academy casters days within LCS. And as I said, I think they're probably just testing to see, does that decrease viewership or not? Doesn't have an effect on the overall broadcast, because they certainly could have scheduled things differently this summer with the casters and just used all of their premier talent more regularly. It's no problem to cast 3 days a week. They were doing 5 games a day, 3 games a week. I could have done all 15 games every single week when I was casting. That's not a problem. And they don't do that. So
The thing I'll never be able to get over, though, is it'll always be so alien to me coming from CSGO that, like, if you're one of the best casters in the world, but in the English language, then by default, you don't do the best games. That will always bake my noodle, Monty, because, like, the best thing about CSGO for me is, like, but if people don't know, I was a massive elitist. Like, I even used to turn down a bunch of the tier 2 events that had mad money, because it's like, I used to actually say to them, like, yeah, but I'll just be honest with you, I'm not going to be that engaged because you don't have the good teams. Like, I want to see the top 10 teams play. So the craziest thing to me is, like, the main reason to have the best talent on the LCS isn't actually even like it brings viewership stuff. In my opinion, the best reason, and sadly this doesn't work on Riot do not feel shame, is the idea that you yourself, if you're Riot, want to brag. Like, if I go to the esports awards, Monty, and I'm the person from Riot, I want to be able to turn to the guys who do ESL CSGO stuff and Dota and stuff and go, we have the best broadcast. Have you ever watched our broadcast? Our talent's the shit. I don't want to be like, well, you know, I mean, who cares about broadcast, right? Oh, right, you have all the legends. I just have like some brand new guy who just started. Like, that sounds shit. Like, how about for your own self-respect? Shouldn't you want your broadcast to have awesome talent that put together something you'd be proud of, or your kids could watch in 10 years, a big final, it'd be super. Because that's the other thing that people take for granted. Mate, when I first got into the NFL like 10 years ago or whatever, I remember going and watching games and being like, wow, some of this talent's fucking amazing. Some of these people, like, I've never heard of, like, they're really good. Like fucking Chris, whatever his name is, Collins was really good. Yeah. Mega. He's like got a great on-camera presence. Like, if you watched LCS now in 2023, it should be the most developed. It might have their worst product now. Like, now it's all over the place. Like, it's a mix of like a couple of. What's weird is I don't really know the logic. Like, again, I haven't actually tried to pry into this scene, guys. I'm talking mainly as an outsider. Like, it's always been puzzling to me. Like, why are Raz and Mark Z like the only people who are like fucking made men in Riot and just are there every season? Like, I like both of them, but they're not like they're not Cadril or something. You know, like, I don't get it. I don't get the logic of the lineups. I don't get why they bring in Gabby Durden, but then also sort of throw to the Wolves and how she's gone. Like, I don't know what they're sort of going. Like, what's even the flavor they're going for LCS? I'm not sure what it is, mate.
I mean, they also just continue to bring back, as you point out, the same people over and over again, which if you're looking for a younger audience, and it's not a slight against any of these people, but perhaps if you're a Zoomer, you don't necessarily want to see some dudes in their late 30s at this point in time on the main broadcast. And we say this as guys in our late 30s / early 40s, but we create a show for people who like this kind of content, right? The goal of Last Free Nation is to serve a more mature esports audience.
When you say that, though, it does make me think that, you know, when I get that gel, I can do that like Zoomer cut. It makes me think we should have like a 10-minute version of Someone Insight where it's just me like the Zoomer cut, like, hey, three, like, no, just to do like,
Slay King.
See if it works. Maybe that demographic does work.
Yeah, look, we just know that we're not going to be, we're not here to entertain 19-year-olds. That's just the fact.
But I would also, logically, I would take all my real points, but I'd fuck them all up into Zoomer talk. So instead of making like a really impassioned point I made earlier about the GM, it'd just be all shit like, little bro Dardo thought he was on the team. He was just picking the play, you know, some shit. It'd be all the shit they all say as well. Bruh thinks he's on the team and all that. Like, what is blood waffling about? Like, I can't have the soundboard level of this generation.
So this is the point is like LFN was very deliberately constructed to be something for, you know, 25 plus esports demographic.
It's a more serious point, though, that ties into something we've talked about before. If I were them, Monty, no joke, bearing in mind we're in a co-streaming world where people get to pick what they want, I would actually unironically do 2 broadcasts, mate. I would do like a really fun, casual Zoomer podcast version, and I would have like a boomer one like we're talking about, like for the people. I'd essentially have like the adults one and the kids one. I wouldn't call it that, obviously. You'd name it differently. Like, you'd give it some cool angle, but like, I would actually do it for real. Why not?
Yeah, why not? I totally agree. But my point is
it's not that much between those audiences. It's not really great overlap.
My point is that if they want to have content and their idea is to attract a younger, fresh audience to the LCS, I don't think it's possible to do that with a bunch of boomers. That's just my take. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the boomers can figure it out, but I don't think they're, you know, the people, the talent on that broadcast are going to be the ones who are bringing in the young generation to make this cool again. Like, they have younger people. Let's compare this to Valorant. Okay. Valorant in North America is, I think, doing better in terms of player base. It certainly is doing better in Gen Z cultural relevance in America than League of Legends is right now. And let's think about the talent that they have on that broadcast. Yeah, sure. I mean, they have some people, like they have some people I worked with on the Overwatch League. So Golden Boy is my age, for example, but he's the host. So it's a little bit different. You can have kind of a more mature person in that role. But some of the other guys that I worked with on Overwatch League, I think, well, like Sideshow and Brenner, they're late 20s now, which is like an aspirational age, at least for early 20-something Zoomers, right? And then they also have like, I think Mimi, Evil Cat, is like 20. She's like a fixture. Yeah, 20, 21. She's great. She's a fixture on their desk now. But for the most part, outside of like Golden Boy and Sean Gares, the talent skews a lot younger, and I think that's attractive. And also, by the way, guys, when League of Legends was popular, a lot of us who were casters 10 years ago were at the age that like Sideshow and Bren are now. And now we're all just fucking boomers. And like, I'm happy to make content for boomers. That's totally cool for me. It serves my interest these days and the things that I want to do with my life and my career. But if you want to create a culturally relevant broadcast to younger people, you can't just have only boomers on your broadcast. You can't do that. And it's like they're obsessed with keeping all of these people around. And again, it's not that I think these people are bad. I think the LCS talent is generally quite strong. I just don't think it's going to accomplish the product goal that you want it to accomplish. So that's it. And I feel bad for Dash.
Dead, so it's over.
Also, viewership is down enormously.
By the way, yeah, sucks for Dash. Like, what's he going to do the rest of his career? Remember, his problem is he put all his eggs in the League and Valorant basket, and now he's doing what? Fuck all, nothing, who knows?
And how is this not a stark warning? This should be a neon flashing warning to everybody who's worked at Riot that they will just throw you away without a second thought. Then they will lie to you about the things that you will do in the future. They will tell you you are doing shows of which you do one episode of, and then they never contract you again. And I think people have totally missed the point about what happened to Dash, which is that he got fucked. And Riot told you repeatedly, publicly, that he wasn't getting fucked. But now we can just look, because LCS is over. He's not coming back for Worlds. Did he get fucked in the year of our Lord 2023? The answer is yes. He got unequivocally fucked. And I feel so bad for him. And I think anybody who works at Riot in a talent or casting capacity should be looking for alternative career options immediately, because this shit is not viable, and you don't want to be dumped on your ass when you're in your mid to late 30s without anything else you could possibly do or another way to make money. That is garbage. And I think people are not outraged about this because Riot is getting away with this actively because they told you things to placate you and then you forgot about it.
All right, here, I'll do that thing where what I do is, it's actually more of a Monte approach, but I'll take a turn doing it, where what I do is, I make it sound like as part of the abstract discussion, I'm just suggesting a good faith solution, but the solution just plays entirely into my wheelhouse and what I want and what benefits me. So basically, this is why, Monte, I'll even do it like you, this is why all the bloody talent should start appearing on our shows and not turning us down because they're scared and trying to keep Riot happy. Because actually, as a serious point, we're actually one of the only games in town with what we're trying to do with like sponsors and stuff, where in the future it might be possible to have a real side gig just doing content, but that also keeps you relevant in the game and keeps you interested for people to hire you. Because right now, like I would have said if we weren't doing this company, that people like Dash, I think a mistake is that they just did the dive. They didn't make their own side podcast with players that they know and talent and build up a whole vibe, because I actually do think in the future, like you see here, the second Riot doesn't hire you anymore, there is no other game in town. It's over. Like your visibility in the game disappears, and we're at the point now where like the joke is, if you asked a random LCS fan, when did Dash quit? I think some of them would think it was last year, mate. Like it feels like it was ages ago, and it was only at the beginning of this year, guys. Like it feels like it was fucking ages ago now. So the sad thing is, I actually do hope that, because that's one thing. Obviously, there's also a point there, subtle point I'm trying to make to talent, which is talent by default. Sometimes it's not even that Riot says to them. As far as I know, Monty, Riot's never saying to them, don't do podcasts. They just think, oh, but I know Riot isn't happy with these guys, so they don't do it. But then again, like Monty says, at the end, when they inevitably fuck all of you, we're exactly where you'd want to come onto our show. It's too late now, isn't it? Like, it could have been on for years. Could have made it work. I mean, I'll even say, by the way, I think of some of the names I just mentioned, Raz, Marksy, they balanced both for like half a decade, guys. You can do both. So in my opinion, there's another mistake. Don't just only make Riot your only platform. Build something else up on the side. Do like a podcast. Like, because the sad thing is, I just think of all those podcasts Dagon does. Dash is like the same skill set. He could be a mega fucking host for a podcast like that. He's also got a great sense of humor. He knows the people. Like, this is another example why you don't want to, because remember, the key thing, like you've talked about in the past, is ever since Riot started having people be freelance, mate, you've got to pick up on that. Like, that's a massive warning sign. That means this is not a company that you can work for 30 years. They aren't going to hire you. Eventually, they're going to replace you with someone younger, hotter, cooler, more popular. So at this point, you've got to have, like, do the Riot thing for your like meat and potatoes, but you've got to have a side hustle too that you can transition to if needed, because that's also a sad thing. Like I say, when these people just only appear on their stream, it's like, not only is no one going to go there, but you're not really doing on your stream what I like to see you do as talent. Like, I want to see you be a host or do an awesome setup. Like, so you got to have something akin to that, in my opinion. So I just think it's a waste of time as well. Like, the amount of this talent that only does Riot stuff, like, come on, branch out a bit.
Yeah, and the reason why, Thorin and I and everybody else who's affiliated with Last Free Nation helped found this company and are building it up right now is because everybody gets equity. You never get equity in fucking Riot Games esports. You never get anything, and they just dump your ass at the end of the day. The point of LFN is that the talent actually finally fucking owns something in this industry, and it's talent owned, talent run, talent creative controlled. Literally, the board of this company cannot say anything about the content of the shows. They can't.
I'll give you a suggestion. Imagine, if you will, John Lennon style, except I'm not a piece of shit and I'm alive, so I win on two there, John. Aside, I don't know why I'm straight shots at John Lennon. In many ways, a bit late on that one. Again, he's dead. So what I would say is this: when it comes to
straight shots at John Lennon is actually in itself a good reference.
when it comes to imagining another world, imagine this world. If people might know, in CSGO on our network, Last Free Nation on the CSGO channel, I do a podcast where I came up with this concept that you intentionally give hot takes. It's not like accidental and everyone gets. Essentially, the premise is people can't get mad because you're going out your way to generate hot takes. Imagine a hot take, and you're going to think I'm joking here, but I'm actually absolutely serious with this casting. I think this will be straight fire. Imagine that show, Hot Take Point Made, where the point is to come with crazy hot takes, and one of the permanent co-hosts is Freak. That would be amazing. Great. That would actually be fucking. Imagine it was like me, Dom, and Freak or something. That would actually be box
be a great
office.
Show.
Who the fuck wouldn't tune into that? That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Like, that would actually do exactly what you want on the box. It'd be perfect. And I would love to get that as well. I bet fucking Freak would kill it, mate. He wouldn't do it, obviously. We have no connection, but it would be fucking sick at exactly that sort of concept, wouldn't he?
Yeah. He'd be wonderful at that stuff. I totally agree with you. Yeah,
and we'll John Lennon and whatever. Whatever.
I'm not a big Beatles fan, but I don't have John Lennon opinions that strong. But yeah, you just have to think about how this stuff works. And, I encourage, to your point though, and I do encourage the other talent to they should have been thinking about this for years. And at a certain point, when you're 10 years deep in your League of Legends casting career and you haven't figured this shit out yet, and you're casting like 2 days a week and you got the rest of your week to do shit, I don't really have a lot of sympathy for you, considering that when I was casting League of Legends, I was coaching a professional team doing 10 best of threes a week, and I was still doing shows. So I don't understand why these other people can't fucking do anything. It's actually outrageous that you have wasted years of your life not building up anything for yourself on a freelance contract, just hoping that you remain relevant with no fucking backup plan whatsoever. Hilariously, the only person who had a backup plan was Freak at the end of the day.
Yeah. Or Jat, if he'd chosen to stay on the design team.
Or Jat.
They at least, a fair play to them, you're right. They at least the whole time were angling for what they might do next and what they might do in the Riot and getting the right relationship. So fair play, they did get it. By the way, here's the other reason that it's actually criminal how bad the LCS is now. You know what? Everyone else thinks this is a whack take money. You know what else vibes me when I say this? They all think I'm just like reaching when I say that they should have made better use of local, right? People don't get it, mate. You know this. Dude, a few years ago, before they fucked him over, Dude, this guy would have been the most loyal LCS like employee ever if you'd have put him on your broadcast. And he is literally, as we have shown on our content, the joke is, if he can handle it, he's like an automatic punchline to every joke. He just makes all the scenarios funnier and more fun and more entertaining. Like, it would actually be fire like that. And obviously now he's gone, by the way. It's too late now. He like years ago went and he's done all the like fucking programming and now the NFT stuff. Like, he's not coming back now. That ship has sailed, but what a waste of time. Like, this guy really wanted to be part of the broadcast too, I'm telling you, he really did.
Also, he was fully bilingual, so you can actually make fun content with Korean players.
You could have brought on Prince and people like that. Exactly, yeah. To see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.